A first-round quarterback has declared, or is he? And there's some turmoil in Tennessee. How does it impact the NFL draft? All of that right here on Locked On NFL Draft. Let's go.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to Locked On NFL Draft. We've got the three of us, the power trio of draft right here. Former NFL, AFL defensive back, Eric Crocker. You can follow him on Twitter at Eric_Crocker. You got Ryan Tracy from Rogue Analytics. He's telling you that he is 5 years old. Well, no, he's older than that, but we're not going to go into that. NFL33.com, Rogue Analytics, at Ryan Tracy NFL on Twitter. And I am John Harris, football analyst, sideline reporter for the Houston Texans, and owner-operator of FootballTakeover.com. Appreciate you guys being with us on a Crossover Thursday Prize Picks episode. This is awesome. Crossover Thursday is presented by our friends at Prize Picks, and it's so much fun and easy to play. No competing with other players, just you versus the projections available. Pick 2 to 5 players. If they score more or less than the Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. It can literally take less than 60 seconds to enter. It's that easy. We love Prize Picks, and we know you will too. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. And, gentlemen, we are locked on a quarterback tonight we've talked about, but now the college part of his season is done, and Will Levis of Kentucky has declared for the NFL draft. Just get our gut reactions to that. Eric, gut reaction, Will Levis has declared for the NFL draft.
Knew it was coming. That's my gut reaction. I think that was something that we all expected. But I'd say, digging deeper than that, intriguing prospect. Maybe the most intriguing prospect out of all the quarterback guys. I mean, you can have an opinion of Anthony Richardson. You can have an opinion on where you think Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud and some of these other guys would go. But the one that's the most up in the air is Will Stroud, because there are a couple of different reasons. One, we know that he has this immense ability, right? Like, the ability's there, the size is there. I had one of my quarterback guys. I was there during his basically like junior day. It was a pro day for a guy, but he threw some passes. He was like, he's a big guy. He looks like a quarterback. He's 6'4", broad shoulders, he looks like the guy. And I think people have high expectations of him, but everything was on his shoulders. Out of all the quarterbacks that we're going to talk about in the draft process, he probably had the least amount of help. And half the season, he was missing his running back, who was a big benefit when he came back. But he had to play most of the season without him. So didn't have a receiver. Last year, yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson. Well, you lost him to the draft. It was an uphill battle for him. And I don't think he handled it necessarily well. But I think he's the guy who, as people watch him and they get to meet him, and they see this guy that drinks mayonnaise coffee and eats banana peelings, they might kind of like his personality a little bit and say and talk themselves into saying, you know what? Maybe he is a top 5, top 10 pick.
Ryan, can you talk yourself into mayonnaise in your coffee?
Nope.
No, don't answer that. I don't think anybody can, but Will Levis can. And I think Eric brings up a great point. He's got some flavor. I mean, he's got some fire too. Ryan, Will Levis is going to be talked about probably more than any other quarterback, maybe outside of Anthony Richardson. I mean, it's probably those two that we're going to be talking about because they're so polarizing. I think we kind of know what you're getting with C.J. Stroud. You kind of know what you're getting with Bryce Young. But what are we getting with Will Levis? How flawed do you think Will Levis is, and how much is it going to take during this draft process to convince teams that he is not that flawed quarterback, as Eric pointed out, that he had really no help, that he can come and be a guy that contributes for you right away in 2023 in the NFL?
I think he's flawed from the point that above the shoulders, there's a lot of work to do. And it's eyes into the processing and the decision-making. It's a chain. In order to prove himself, or at least convince teams that it's worth taking a chance on, and it's all relative, right, to where they're picking, it's got to be the interview process. It's got to be the board, one-on-one memorization. Can you spit it out? And I think he's got to get not only a quarterback coach to help him with all his immense physical tools in the run-up on the field, because he certainly has that. Physically, he's nearly prototypical in terms of what you want to look for in a quarterback. But he's also going to get somebody that can put him through the rigors of not just the offense he came from, but the offense he's going to be asked to adapt to in not only the interviews, but eventually where he lands. Can he do it?
At that point, Eric, what is Will Levis' ceiling? Ryan said second round. What's his ceiling? Not only what round you think he goes in, but also what type of player can he be if he gets around the right coaching staff, right offensive scheme, right players around him, et cetera?
I think that's kind of something that's to be determined, right? Like, we've watched him. We've watched a lot of his games. But now when you start to nitpick and really dive into just the little intricacies of his game, how is he making these throws? How does the ball come out of his hands? Is he doing the far hash throws? When he turns his back to a defense and flips his head back around, is he quick with his decision making? Those are the things I think will determine. And then that kind of let us know exactly what kind of prospect he is. And you can kind of, read between the lines there and say, you know what, man, he just really didn't have help, but he had a ton of talent. There's a guy by the name of Josh Allen. I remember Josh Allen at Wyoming, and I would watch him against Oregon, and I watched him against this other, like a Power 5 school. I'm like, why does anybody like this guy? He looks terrible. Well, when you have to do everything, it makes you look a certain way, and I think that's what's going on with Will Levis. But, people talk themselves into really liking Josh Allen down the stretch, and I think maybe there's a chance that they do that with Will Levis as well.
Ryan, Will Levis to the Senior Bowl. Do you think that's the right move? Now, I haven't seen whether he's accepted his invite yet. I know he got an invite. I don't know if he's accepted it. If you're Will Levis, do you go to the Senior Bowl and perform at the Senior Bowl?
Absolutely. Because, again, like we've talked about, I think for a lot of teams, it's 1 and 2, and then it's question mark. Anything you can do to prove that you can walk in, lead another group of guys that have had all different varying levels of success on 1 week, adapt to whatever you're being taught there by whoever the staff is. Maybe it's the Texans, who knows? That's going to go a long way towards adaptability. It's also another opportunity to get on the board, to have one-on-one conversations and really get it out there who you are, not just the flavor that you bring, but how much you bring.
And I think the Senior Bowl did help the guy that we've talked a lot about, Josh Allen. I think the Senior Bowl helped because in the span of 3 or 4 days, he was able to show in those practices. He went from god-awful on day one to, hey, wait, maybe there's something by Thursday. And that, I think, is what got teams' attention, how fast he improved, and the fact that he could do that day in and day out, I thought was huge at the Senior Bowl. All right, we're going to talk about a general manager who was fired surprisingly this week. What does that mean for Tennessee? How did the draft and failing in the draft play a role? Bad trades. Talk about all that next. But we got to talk about Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we're sure you're going to love. How about Block Forever? It's a brand new podcast from former NFL All-Pro center Ryan Khalil and Audible. Khalil takes the conversation about football to the next level, talking with star players, coaches, former pros, what's inside the locker room, what's during team meetings and back at the hotel. You'll hear from Christian McCaffrey, talk about his love-hate relationship with fantasy football. Juju Smith-Schuster gives his most honest opinions about TikTok. No, I'm kidding. On other players and other positions in the league. New episodes of Blocked Forever will be recorded and released every week at a Thursday night football. Available for free on Audible or wherever you get your podcasts. Head over to Locked On NFL for a sneak peek of Blocked Forever. Catch the full series available anywhere you get your podcast. Available everywhere. Now, Audible, get in the game. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today. For your second listen today, check out Locked On Sports today. From the games that matter the most, the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcast. Gentlemen, a seemingly interesting bomb was dropped on, I think it was Tuesday. And when I saw it, I was like, that's Adnan Schefter tweeting that. That's not Adam Schefter. I checked it 100 times. It was Adam Schefter tweeting that Tennessee Titans GM Jon Robinson, who had been the GM since 2016, had navigated the Titans to 3-9-7 seasons, then got them to 10 wins plus for the next 2 years. They're sitting at 7-5. Robinson fired 2 days after the Titans went to Philadelphia, and A.J. Brown put it all over them. Now, Treylon Burks is going to end up being a pretty good player. But as I look at this Tennessee situation, this one is really odd in some ways, shocking in some ways, And then I think it might be very easy to figure out that Mike Vrabel kind of needed or wanted the power. Eric, when you heard that Tennessee had fired their GM, Jon Robinson, what was your initial thought? And what do you think Tennessee does at this point? Not maybe the name they bring in for GM, but how do they kind of handle the draft and all those kind of things with not having a GM the rest of this year going on into 2023 at the start of it?
I think my initial reaction was, did A.J. Brown get him fired? Now I'm kind of halfway joking there, but did A.J. get him fired? Not because he just destroyed them Sunday afternoon, but because of the decision to trade away a guy like that and not make it work, right? Like, if you're Vrabel, I'm pretty sure Vrabel's like, I do not. Matter of fact, I remember in the time when it was happening, Vrabel did not want A.J. Brown going. Like, you got to make this work. This dude is too talented. And when you draft a guy in the second round, you hope he's half of what A.J. Brown has been so far throughout his career. And then you get that, and it's like, we don't even want to meet him in the middle. We don't even want to negotiate. We're just going to trade him away. And when you're a GM and you make that type of decision to do it, you better strike gold. Now, we saw Minnesota Vikings strike gold with it when they traded away Stephon Diggs. And then, oh, man, you just happen to get the best receiver in the NFL, or arguably the best in Justin Jefferson. But it typically doesn't happen like that. And I think Tennessee Titans are seeing that. And there's a lot of time for Treylon Burks to really pick it up. And I think he's starting to get better and better. We have seen that. But, man, losing A.J. Brown, making those type of decisions, and how it's kind of continued to be a thing where you rely so much on Derrick Henry. Everything is on Derrick Henry. Every single thing with that offense. Well, that's on the GM. And I think he's taking a big hit with that now. Yeah,
no doubt. Ryan, I saw this in Houston when Bill O'Brien, after the 2019 season, it was 2019, no, after the 2018 season, the Texans decided to get rid of Brian Gaine, and Bill O'Brien essentially took over as what Pete Carroll is up in Seattle. He had full control of personnel. Sean Payton had that when he was in New Orleans. Mickey Loomis was a GM, but Sean Payton had full control. Sean McVay has full control with the LA Rams. They do have GMs alongside them. But to Eric's point about trading, the Buffalo Bills traded for Stephon Diggs. Minnesota got a first-round pick back, and they ended up using that pick on Justin Jefferson. In our situation, we traded DeAndre Hopkins, and let me show you exactly what we have to show for it 2 years later. Zero. Nada. Nothing. Absolutely zilch in that trade. And I got to think that was a big part, obviously, of what happened here in Houston. But the A.J. Brown part, Eric brought it up and thought, well, did A.J. Brown get him fired? I don't think it's just that. But, Ryan, how much do you think A.J. Brown and trading A.J. Brown, a guy that was a fixture in that lineup, a fixture in Nashville, and this goes to one thing I know you talk about and we talk about a lot, he was the character of that team. Like, A.J. Brown was great, but he also was that dude. How much do you think that all played a role in Jon Robinson moving along? I know they got Treylon Burks, but how much do you think that was a big role for Jon Robinson losing his job?
I don't think it was the core of the decision. This feels a little emotional to me, to tell you the truth. But I think it was the last straw. It was like, not only did you let him go and you didn't work it out, but he came back and he stomped you himself.
Yeah.
I think that's really what it is. It's everything gets forgotten. I think particularly a player that can make such an impact on the field goes a long, long way. And Burks may grow into that. We'll see how it goes on. I think probably more so is what is the big time position that has to make an impact every week. That they also have made a draft investment and it hasn't panned out yet. Malik Willis has time to grow, but I think there's probably a sense of urgency emotionally from leadership there that, hey, you went and got this guy because you thought it was going to fix things and it hasn't yet. So it feels like the fuse was short and it did go off in your hand, but now you got to make the best of it. The question for me is what else is coming? Because until you get somebody that I think Mike Vrabel's earned every bit of leeway he gets, every bit of investment. It's got to be a fit. And I don't know, unless you can go back to somebody that's was either with Vrabel in New England or has a similar like personal connection. Everything about this feels really personal to me. And I think it has to going forward to work with Vrabel. That's going to be, I think, the tough part moving forward.
And that's the odd part to me, guys. The fact that Jon Robinson was in New England when he was in the scouting department, which is a little different. He's in the scouting department when Vrabel was a player there. So that's where I was like, Now, I could always see it in Houston with Bill O'Brien, Rick Smith. They came from different worlds, but they weren't the same planet. But this feels like it is straight out of the Bill Belichick playbook of you've got to get player control as the head coach. And now Mike Vrabel has it, and we'll see what he does. Jon Robinson made some great draft picks. Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown in the second round. He went and got Kevin Byard. He stuck his neck out there for Jeffrey Simmons when Simmons had some behind-the-scenes off-the-field issues coming out of high school. Those all worked, but obviously missing on Isaiah Wilson. There was one full draft where I don't think they got anything out of that draft. And then, of course, the one we talked a lot about is Malik Willis. Was Vrabel resistant to Willis? Was Robinson trying to push Willis? That could get kind of dicey. We'll never know. But we do know that Tennessee's looking for a general manager, and we'll see what they end up with down the road. All right, we got to finish up with a little either or, and we're going to talk about some quarterbacks and some ones we've already talked about. And we'll hear that next. But we got to talk about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for betting info, stats, news, and analysis. At this time of year, you got so many different things that you can bet on. You get the latest odds and trends for every professional amateur league out there. From football, you got NFL going on, you got bowl games coming up, you got CFP, you got men's and women's basketball, NBA basketball, soccer, esports. You got it all at betonline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. And where it starts for us a lot of times is with a Built Bar. That's how you should start your day. Now, that's the way it should be done. I don't know if you do that, but I know that's what we do. You got to try these guys that are coming out, these new flavors that are coming out. Built's new reimagined flavors. Cookie dough topper, coconut brownie bar, coconut brownie topper. Now, I know some in my family are like, we don't like coconut. Okay, we'll get on that cookie dough topper. But I don't even have to encourage them because they're gone by the time I can even get there. In the holiday season, who doesn't love white chocolate peppermint? I mean, I do. I just had ice cream of that last night. So white chocolate peppermint ganache, it's Built's take on a granola bar, so it's more filling and still insanely tasty. And candy cane brownie puff. Good grief. Built Puffs are like biting into the universe's most delicious cloud. For anyone who hasn't tried Built Bars before, they're literally the best tasting protein bars ever built. And for all of us on the go, grab one, take it with you in the car, you're in traffic, take down one or two, your day is made. They're revolutionizing nutrition as we know with 100% real chocolate, 17 grams of protein, and shockingly low sugar and calories, only 130 calories. Get 15% off your order right now by using the code LOCKEDON15 at Built.com. Built, you got to try this. All right, gentlemen, a couple of either-ors to close it down. We're going to start right here with a couple of guys that we've mentioned this week. Two quarterbacks have declared for the NFL draft as we know right now. One is Will Levis, one is Anthony Richardson. So, Eric Crocker, I'll ask you, either or, quarterback with the higher ceiling, either Will Levis or Anthony Richardson.
Oh, Anthony Richardson has the higher ceiling. That's not the issue. The issue is I think he's just more of a project, which is fine because I'm definitely all for betting on upside. I'm definitely a risky type person just by nature. You know, I have this building a $1.1 million gym that I just built. So I am all for taking risk and knowing what's on the other side of that. So from that standpoint, higher upside, who I probably would take a risk on, maybe Anthony Richardson if I see a little bit more of what I like.
Okay, Ryan Tracy, same one. Higher ceiling, either Will Levis or Anthony Richardson.
As a quarterback, we're talking, right? I just want to make sure we're talking about delivering the ball to other players. So,
yes,
yeah,
quarterback.
I think you have to take Will Levis. I disagree for once with Eric Crocker. I enjoy this, which lets us both get the player we want in this scenario. So I like that. But it's because of the tools. It's because it's about fine-tuning how he views and approaches the game rather than trying to refine everything about the passing game, which I agree. Richardson has a great upside, but there's a lot more to get done there. So who's got the ceiling from where they are now to where they can go? I think Will Levis can actually top out.
Okay, so let me throw this crazy scenario. I actually was talking about this with my friend Mark Vandermeer, the voice of the Texans. Just go with me on this. C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young both decide to go back to school. Why? I don't know. Just say they do. And the Texans are sitting there at number one, Eric Crocker. Are you taking Will Levis or Anthony Richardson?
Oh, man. And I have to take one of those two.
You have to. Got to. Cal McNair and Hannah McNair said you got to take a quarterback, Eric. You're the GM. You got to take a quarterback, and you got to take one of those two guys. One might have the higher ceiling, but one you might trust a little bit more. Which one would
Richardson,
you take?
because, look, if I'm picking them one overall, I can't play it safe. And I don't think there is a scenario between those two guys that is playing it safe. So if I am going to go all in on trying to get the most out of one of these guys, I at the very least know, hey, right away, I can run this gimmicky offense and get by with Richardson and work on developing the other aspects of his quarterbacking. So I would still go with Richardson there, as opposed to the guy that might be a little bit more one-dimensional. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You know, one guy be able to play from the pocket, throw from the pocket, but there's no changeup, there's no curveball. It's either that's got to work in a specific offense or that's it, as opposed to, okay, I can groom this guy, but still get by with some Lamar Jackson type stuff and play action and still make some throws. And okay, I like that. And if he's in a bind, he can take off for 60 yards. And we've seen a lot of that from Justin Fields right now, as Justin Fields continues to get acclimated with what he's seeing from defenses and delivering the ball on time and maybe not having the best of weapons. Well, whatever, because at the end of the day, I can go run for 150 yards.
Ryan Tracy, same question. Young and Stroud decide going back. Texans have to take a quarterback at number one, either Levis or Richardson.
Well, first off, 150 yards ain't going to get it done. That doesn't get you W's in this league. So I got to get a guy that can get it to my weapons. And there's this investment at this guy named Pierce already. I got a run game. I'm good with that. I need to run more play action. I need to support with offensive line play. I think you can get more out of a quarterback that is a quarterback right now, knucklehead as it might be at times. I think that's the way that I go. And again, Eric and I both get our way.
Yeah, there you go. All right, let's go to this question. Eric, you mentioned a word that actually, it's funny because I wrote it down in all caps. Now these two have decided to declare for the draft. Which one is the safer option, either Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud? Eric, go first.
Bryce Young. Because I feel like I'm just more comfortable with his accuracy, especially the intermediate accuracy. I think he's a terrific decision maker. I feel like coming from the Alabama offense, I feel like they have a little bit more pro-style concepts, so you can see how that translates to the next level. So I would have to go with Bryce Young on that one.
Safer option, Ryan Tracy, either Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud.
Well, now we're back on the same page because Eric and I agree. Not only is he safer, I think you can see long-term production as long as you can keep him healthy. There's one question about Bryce Young, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it for the next 5 months.
And there's something he can't change either. It's the one thing he can't change. Everything else probably could change a little bit. The one thing he is not going to change, he's going to walk up by the tape measure, and that's just going to be what it is. That's what it is. I'm going to save – I got one of the either – I'm going to save it because it does have to do with Stroud or Young. I'll save it for a little bit later. But I like the fact that you guys are on the same page. To close the show, it's unity right here on Locked On NFL Draft. I like that. I like that for ending this podcast, and we thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Day podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get podcasts. For Ryan, for Eric, I'm John. We'll see you next time right here on Locked On NFL Draft. Let's go.